Everybody, welcome back to Bobby's Books, and today I wanted to talk about the 10 most important things that you should go over when you're getting into deer hunting. We'll talk a little bit about bow hunting, gun hunting. We'll talk all about it. Stick with us. Here we go. So I kind of wanted to do a rapid fire on these topics, and you can go on and on. You can probably find videos on every topic we'll talk about, but getting into deer hunting, let's just go over the basics. Get on your DNR website for your state. Get familiar with your hunting season, opening day, what different seasons there are in your area, and you'll know when the season starts or when it stops, and when you can bow hunt or gun hunt, because they're all fun, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of them. And even on that website you'll be able to find public land, because you're going to want to get some permission on private land, but it's really tough to come by. Usually other hunters are hunting it. You're going to have to share that property with other hunters. If you ever find some private land that you can hunt all to yourself, hooray, celebrate, keep it sacred, so really enjoy that if you got it. Be sure to ask all your friends and family if they have some property that they wouldn't mind you deer hunting, or maybe they have some cropland that they don't want the deer eating the crops, and that would be a big help. You really can find some property if you just keep looking. And you can also knock on doors, ask for permission to hunt. I actually hunt a couple of my neighbors' properties, and if you'd like to hear more about that, be sure to let me know down in the comments below, and I'll make a video on how to ask for permission. So once you have some area to hunt, you're going to want to scout it, and you're going to want to break down that property and figure out where the deer are moving and where you can hang your stands and where you can maybe hang some trail cameras. If you'd like to hear more about how to scout a property and break it down, I'll put a video up in the corner and you can see how we scout a property. Deer hunting, getting started with deer hunting can be really inexpensive if you happen to borrow some clothes and borrow a weapon. You can go out and kill deer on the ground, and you don't necessarily need a tree stand and an ozonics machine and all that stuff. You really can just keep it simple. You can either borrow a weapon or borrow some old camo clothes, or Walmart is probably your best bet, your cheapest route. You can get some cheap clothes depending on what the temperatures are. You probably want to get some long johns, and you can get some basic camo depending on what the temperatures are and when you're going to be hunting. In Michigan, it gets pretty darn cold, but when the season starts, we're hunting in pants and a long sleeve, and then by the end of the season, we're wrapped up like an Eskimo. My first shotgun was a 12 gauge Mossberg. I had a cracked stock. There was nothing really to it, and I harvested several deer with it. The following year I purchased a low-end compound bow. Same thing, harvested several deer, and eventually you'll work your way up to a better and better weapon. The following year you can always sell that weapon and upgrade to a better weapon. Now you can hunt deer on the ground, or you can hunt deer in a tree stand, a ground blind. You really can get it done, but the bottom line is you need to be concealed. You need to be hidden. So if you use a ground blind, make sure you brush it in. If you're in a tree stand, make sure you're up there where there's limbs and brush. You don't want to be out on a telephone pole where there's nothing breaking up your silhouette. And if you'd like to see a video on different tree stands and different ways you can hunt, I'll put a video up in the corner. Okay, so we talked about the regulations and the guidelines, camo, your equipment. Now let's talk about educating yourself with deer hunting. I'm telling you, back in the day, you had to wait for a hunter safety class. I took my first hunter safety class when I was 14, and it was a great class, but all that information you can get right now online. You can watch videos, you can read all the information that I learned in that class on the DNR website. It's incredible. You really don't have to wait to take a class anymore. Find videos and find hunters and find people that are sharing information in your state. It's one thing to hunt deer like they do in Kansas, but if you're from Michigan, that just won't work. So there's less bow hunters per square mile, and the deer are just not reacting from the pressure the same way. In Michigan, you have 400,000 bow hunters. The same condensed area, those deer encounter hunters on a regular basis, and they're looking up in trees, and they're just harder to kill. So that's the pressure that you're putting on the deer. Basically, they're the education. There's a saying, if you can kill a mature deer in Michigan, you can kill a mature deer anywhere. There's certain states that are really high pressure. It's really important that you try to find some YouTube channels from your state. Maybe some folks that have written books on hunting deer in your state specifically, because really hunting, if I were to research hunting deer in Florida, it's really not going to help me when I'm hunting deer in Michigan, because they're just different. They react based on the amount of hunters that are coming into the woods and they're encountering. So like for an example, in Kansas, that's a big state. You have a population of deer, but then there's only 40,000 bow hunters. So depending on what kind of hunting conditions you have, you really want to educate yourself with those conditions. Really learn where to set up and how to spot sign, and how you can do that is by research, deer bedding, deer feeding, deer travel routes. They will definitely use the most thickest and dense areas of the woods to travel for safety reasons. It's not just humans, they're always trying to protect themselves from predators. They have a lot of coyotes, wolves, bears. So you want to learn how they travel, and of course you want to know when they travel. Deer will move several times during the day in their bedding area. They'll move to feed, they'll move at night, and you want to know where they're moving to. And also educate yourself on what the rut is, what the pre-rut is, when the post-rut is. In my family, I didn't have a mentor that took me deer hunting. My dad and I did a little rabbit hunting, but that was about it. And I really had to figure out when the rut was. Really, that's the time of year when deer are breeding. Mature deer, when deer become 3, 4, 5 years old or older, they are not moving out in the open anymore unless it's very secure and they feel safe. And these deer are very tough to kill until that time of year where it's a pre-rut chasing phase where they're trying to breed as many does as they can that come into heat, and that's the only time that you really get to see them, and they go back into the bedding and they become ghosts. So learn when that is, and if you don't know where to start, get online and just Google when is the rut in my area. Now it's going to be different in all states. From the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, it's going to be different timing. So in Michigan, it really starts to heat up, and they start to chase the last week of October, the first 2 weeks of November. I mean, it's like a very magical time. There is a lockdown time the closer you get towards the middle of November. Pretty much gun season, the breeding is done, but it's tough because a lot of them are all locked down at that time. If I were to pick what my favorite season is, it's absolutely bow hunting. And one really cool thing about bow hunting is you can shoot your arrows over and over again. You don't have to continue to go buy another box of ammo. Once you buy a dozen arrows, cry once, buy once, and you can just continue to shoot. Once you learn the discipline of a steady pin and all the mechanics of shooting. And if you'd like to see more about shooting and how we turn our 40-yard shot into a little 2-foot putt, I'll put a video up in the corner and you can see how we do that. So become really good with your bow. Shoot out to far distances, even go as far as to put a stand up in your yard. Yes, I do that. I'm that guy, the knucklehead climbing into a stand and shooting, because you want to go through all these scenarios and make sure you become really comfortable. Once a week, once a month, go out to the range and really learn how to steady that crosshair. The discipline of a steady crosshair is something that you get better and better at. Learn to move through the woods like a ghost, like a predator. You don't want to just walk, drag your feet, and make a bunch of noise. I mean, that is the opposite of hunting. You're just walking and hiking and pushing and spooking. So when it comes to public land, you have to beat hunters to the hunting spot. When it comes to private land, you have to beat the deer herd to the hunting spot. So be sure to learn to show up early. It's always good to be in your stand an hour before light, at least a half hour before the light. You want to beat that blue time. When it's blue, you're really too late. Now, if you're in an unfamiliar area and you want to walk in, it's not the end of the world if you do walk in quietly at dawn with your climber or your tree saddle set up. I did that several times and harvested deer, but you just really have to learn your equipment. Even go as far as to wrap your equipment in silencers so you don't tink anything as you're setting up. I think it's important to mention safety. My wife always has me text her the GPS. Be sure to text a significant other your location, a GPS coordinate, so if anything were to happen, they would have some spot to start to come get you. I always hunt with my cell phone on silent. That way, if I need it, I can contact somebody. They also make devices that will send out a signal. It runs on GPS. It bounces off the satellites. When you can't get a cell signal, this will still work. So you can always send out an emergency with that device. I'll link one of those down in the description. When it comes to hunting whitetails, you can never take their nose for granted. More times than not, when a mature deer smells you, it's going to put its nose up and it's going to slip out of there. You're never even going to see it. You'll never even know that it was close. So you really have to respect that. The first thing a deer hunter checks is their weather app and figures out which way that wind is going. You have to access so the wind doesn't spook the deer. The deer can't smell you from start to finish. Also, just like learning the wind, Learn pressure. When hunters are putting pressure on one side of the property or one side of the public land parcel, I will go in on the other side and watch the deer pour into the property I'm hunting. When deer hunters are hunting a property really hard, it will push deer away from that area. Deer will not enter that area until the nighttime, until it's safe. They know deer hunters are in there during the day. So just like you'll use the wind to hunt deer, you'll also learn to use hunting pressure, especially on public land or areas where there's a lot of hunting pressure. And if you set up in the appropriate area, you can use that to your benefit and watch all those deer pour into your area. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you'd like to see more information on how to hunt the rut, be sure to stay tuned for that. We'll show you how to set up and what to expect as far as deer behavior that time of year. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.